Because Jake, obviously a very emotional week. A lot has obviously been said. How tough was today to go out and play for Cornal? Was it tough for you guys to obviously rock up today and have to deliver?
It was a bit tough, I must say. I mean, you forget how young these guys are, Ronaldo. I'm an older guy, and you still feel like, gee, this is not how it should be. And I just said to them now, that it was a different week. It's something that we've never experienced. I finished with 14 men as well. Took Sopas off. I wanted to see whether we could defend and play without a line-out caller. Deliberately did that because I want to see whether or not I put them into situations where we can't always control those things. And the message is, we've done all the hard yards now to get into the playoffs. Now we needed a why, and this is the why. So I think I'm hoping sporting teams sometimes they need this. You look at what happened to Munster when they lost their coach. They just kicked into gear and they ended up winning. And so Winston Churchill said, and in adversity comes opportunity. So it was a tough week, and I had to talk to them obviously as youngsters, because as much as we might understand it, they don't understand. It's not the real world. Rugby players, buses, aeroplanes, hotels, nice salaries. It's not really how the world operates. So I think it was a learning curve for these guys as well, which is part of coaching as well. It's not just about the rugby. It's sharing that with them as well, and it was emotional. I had to find the right time to say it, and the right forum, and also the right mindset. Because obviously, in the beginning of the week, it was very difficult for me. But I think it was the right time now post the game. I didn't want to do it before a game and play all the emotions with them. So they got a week off, and now we can come back and really, use that emotional energy that sporting teams sometimes need in the sports that we play.
Just a last question on Nama today. I know you spoke in the week and you said you don't want him to play 18 rounds in 80 minutes, but he had an unbelievable performance tonight. So how happy are you with?
Yeah, fantastic for him, and he's happy too, considering that he's never played with this group of players. We're very lucky. We've got Marcel Coetzee, who's been man of the match in a URC game. And we've got Marco van Staden, who's a World Cup winner, playing in the same position as he's playing. So it is one area where we are very, very fortunate that we've got a lot of depth in that position. But it's not gonna count against him that he's done so well in a game like this. Playing with those guys, the first time he's played in those combinations. He started for us in the very first game of the year against Edinburgh, and that was without the Springboks because they were away. So. Part of my chat to him when he missed out on the tour was you'll get a chance, and you'll get a proper chance, and you'll play with combinations, not always makeshift combinations. So I'm very happy for him. I'm as I said, man of the match, and he did all the things I expected of him. He didn't try and do everything on his own or try and win every single turnover because he's good at it. But in the first game, he gave 4 or 5 penalties away when I put him on. So I'm glad that he's obviously understood what his role was.
Jake, I also just wanted to find out on Bernard and just maybe how he went. He also just seems to have a blinder.
I'm disappointed he's leaving. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where you invest a lot into the guy. Come through our junior ranks. He played for the school side. He came from a Pretoria school. He played Northern Transvaal or Blue Bulls rugby. Come through the junior ranks. In the ideal world, I would like him to have stayed, and this is the time he can kick on. But as I've said to you many times, the unfortunate thing is that boys that are coming through when they get to this sort of age, they start looking at other options. And also, to be fair to him, we got Paul coming next year. We got Zach, who's played well. Ambrose is, so I can understand it, but I would have loved to have kept him for 1 or 2 more years and then been able to rotate that position as well. Because on today's performance, for a guy who hasn't played much rugby, I can't remember when last he had a game. He looked really slick and oiled in all the things he did. Kicking, running, breaking. So I'm sure he'll do really well when he gets to Bath.
Also, I think winning to just guarantees that home quarterfinal for you guys.
It's not just that. I don't know if you guys are aware, that's the highest amount of points we've scored in the URC in the table. It's the most most wins we've had in the URC, 14 out of 18. So there's a lot of other positive things that have, tries have been up there. Defensively, we're much better than we've been the last 4 years in terms of leaking points and in terms of conceding tries. So job done. First round is what I always say to you, is that you need to get into the playoffs. We've done that. We're in a fortunate position now. We finished second, which means that we're in a really good position. But I've said it to you guys many times, you get judged on the next 3 games. That's when you want to be at your best. The last 3 games of every competition are the ones you want to win. Quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals, World Cups, Junior World Cups, URC, Super Rugby. That's when you need to bring out your best.
Jake, keeping your players fit for the next 3 rounds is critically important. What's the story with Cobus Visa?
I just got a back spasm. Apparently got it in the warm-up as well. And then I said to him, if he gets a back spasm and scores a 40-meter try, he can do that every game. So, again, precautionary. I mean, when he said his back's a bit sore, what I don't want now, a referral in terms of tearing a hamstring. So, I took him off and Doc reckons he'll be fine if he just does the right treatment for the next 2 weeks. And someone asked me, I think Sim asked me during the week, is not playing next week a blessing? Well, on a guy like that, obviously that's fantastic that we get another week to get our squad ready.
It's difficult to see what you did on the field if you're not watching on TV. You said you took players off.
Yeah.
Play ended with 14.
Yeah, I took Sopas off. I took Ruan Nokia off. So we played about 13, 14 minutes with 14 men deliberately.
Okay. So that's why the Mall defense was a bit.
Yeah, so we only had one less forward there. And obviously that happens. It's a bit of a. The defensive coach is obviously not too happy because it's 5 points. But now I wanted to see whether we're clever enough at breakdowns not going in, whether we're clever enough to manage the game with 14, whether we have a new line-out caller. We couldn't then do, we had to do different line-outs in terms of 4-man and all that sort of thing, and the line-outs worked perfectly as well. So I wanted to put them under pressure at the back end, and also selfishly didn't really want to risk a guy like Ruan Nokia in a game when we'd really won it, and I need everyone fit and available for the playoffs.
And Nava also took a bit of a knock at one stage there. Is he okay?
That tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he said to one of the players in the change room, he says they daked him there. And so, and then they did. Keegan got one. David Creel got one. So the Dragons. I give them credit. They didn't lie down. They kept coming at us. Especially after half time, they were 26-0 down and still came back and scored 2 tries straight after half time. And that was with 15 guys on the field without substitution. So, they quite easily have happened that we let that slip again in the middle part of the game. So bringing the bench on. I know Brendan and you guys always ask me about, aren't you worried about how you ended? Today was different. 6 reserves on at the same time, and literally the first play was a more line out and we scored. So there's a lot of positives that we can now add on compared to what I was here last week saying to you, we conceded too many points with our bench.
Thank you.
Well done, Jake. It's often quite difficult when you're playing against the bottom side to kind of assess the quality of the performance.
Yeah.
But how happy are you with the performance as a whole?
Well, look, Ken, I'm sure you've watched enough rugby games to know that one of these games, these games are the ones that you worry about because you can lose your shape. And you can have guys playing individually and you can end up looking like you're not sticking to the structure of what you're trying to put together. And I think you would agree that at times with both groups of players on the field, we look really well organised, defensively and attacking wise, and that's always pleasing because it can actually become like a sevens run around where guys are just trying to do too much, offloading, making mistakes. We did, to be fair, turned over a lot of first phase, as in we launched and lost the first phase, whether it was a knock on or whether we lost it at the breakdown or whether we. So I think that would be an area that we'll spend the next 2 weeks on. Is we get a brilliant line up, great delivery, get the ball to the middle of the field, and then either get stuck in there or we force a pass. I just try and think Kane and trying to give one to Sergio when it wasn't really on Cameron running that line, also trying to, maybe just trying to make a pass more than they needed to do. So the work on for me will be to get a little bit more rhythm in the first three phases from our set piece, because we, against the good sides, you're not going to get 5, 6, 7, 8 chances in a row to play off lineouts and scrums.
And Jake, heading into the knockout rugby now, there's been a lot of talk, and I guess specifically about the Leinster case, where a lot of debate about, because they keep sort of falling short, a lot of debate about whether the right approach is to play your sort of best team and maintain the momentum and the team gelling and all of that, but the other side of that argument is obviously fresh players.
Yes.
Where do you kind of fall in that debate, fresh players or keeping momentum and the team gelling?
Yeah.
And do you feel that you've now arrived at the knockouts having achieved what you set out to do in that regard?
Yeah, so again, it's interesting because I think the last 4 or 5 weeks for us has been knockout rugby. So we've been quite fortunate in that we had to beat Munster, we had to beat Glasgow, otherwise there was no chance of getting a home semi-final or the potential of getting a home semi-final. So we in some way were able to handle that pressure in those big games anyway, because we knew it was do or die, especially against those two teams. Are we there? I mean, it's always, it's not trying to be a smart ass, but only the 14th of June will answer that, and that's the end of the final. Because if you rest guys and they look underdone, then people would obviously criticize or have the viewpoint that you should have kept going with the same group. If you get them all fresh and ready by leaving them out, it could backfire you, or you could win the game and they would say, well, it was a master stroke that you kept the guys that you needed for the big games at the end of the season. So in my case, we couldn't afford the last month of going too far away from what we had. It's why those selections were made, as you saw in the last couple of weeks. It's I've got 2 guys playing in Japan on a sabbatical. I've got some guys away on bereavement leave with their families. I've got injuries. I've got rotation. But at the same time, we couldn't go away from the fact that I wanted them to be cohesive and ready for playoff rugby, because that's the risk I take. That's why I took Ruan Okia off, because I can control that. I can control the fact that we've won the game, we've got a bonus point, there's 12, 13, 14 minutes left, take him off. I don't need a head knock, I don't need a twisted ankle, I don't even need him to make a poor tackle and get a card or whatever, so we hedge our bets on that as well. But those are things that you do on the run.
Jake, obviously it looks like at the moment, we're still going to wait for the Sharks game to finish, but Edinburgh or Munster.
Or Scarlets.
Yeah, or Scarlets, yeah. You've played them all, so is there a preference?
Well, the interesting thing is we've lost to 2 of those. We lost to Scarlets and to Edinburgh.
Scarlets is an asterisk with a red card.
Yeah, sure. So, but I mean, so it's actually quite nice. I don't have to talk them up. In other words, I don't have to try and tell the team that it's a fait accompli. So, lost to Edinburgh in the European Cup, lost to Scarlets there with, obviously with that red card, but still ended up, they've beaten Leinster and us. It's not too bad, Not many teams in one season have beaten the teams that finished 1 and 2 on the log. But Brent, the old saying goes, it doesn't really matter anymore now. When we're in the playoffs, we're going to have to beat teams to win this competition, And one of the things is that this competition has shown is, in the 4 years we've been part of it, the team that's finished first has never hosted the final. So there's so many permutations that can happen now. I mean, I'll watch with interest how the Sharks do against Scarlets, because if we get Scarlets, they need 1 point. They get 1 point, a losing bonus point, they play us. If they win, we play Munster. If they lose, we play Edinburgh. So I'll just watch the game out of interest to see if we do get them, what will be the way we'll play and what sort of team we'll put on against them.
Jake, also, I mean, this is obviously you're looking to go one better than last season, and no coach ever has his perfect team. But arriving at this point at the end of the league stage, are you happy and confident where you are now going into these next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, you can again, Brendan, you can only control what you can control, you know. And as I said to you during the week, you know, no Gerard Steenkamp, no Ulrich Lowe, no Emrose Papi, no Kurtley Orense, no Johan Goosen, no, you know, other players that are on the fringes that maybe could strengthen our bench as well. So you never, I mean, I can tell you that even when I was coaching the box, I don't think you ever get to pick your best 23, ever. Because when you have a certain player back, another one gets injured, or if you know, I've never been lucky enough to have the best 23 guys available for a Saturday. You know? But are we happy where we are? Of course we are. We've got a week off now. We didn't get any injuries today. I'm talking about injuries that will rule people out. We get a massive chance to play in front of our home crowd. I'm hoping that we'll get people now to the playoffs. And then you're right. I mean, the why, which is what I said to you earlier, is, you know, maybe the added emotion of what we can play for now in the next 3 weeks is going to give us that extra boost. We've been missing something. 2 finals, so close. You know, who knows? Maybe this is the thing we needed to give us a reality check.
Jake, you spoke about controlling what you can control.
Yeah.
If you had obviously 2 weeks until the quarterfinals with just your players, you know,
Yes.
you would control that as much as you possibly could. When they're going off to an alignment camp, how
Yeah.
does that affect things? Because also the other issue with an alignment camp, I think sometimes is guys return from there with all this feedback.
Yeah.
And then they kind of like almost trying to implement their own stuff at the worst possible time for you in terms of, obviously it's a quarterfinals, you don't want a guy trying to do his own thing to get into the box team.
Nah. I've been the national coach since. I used to get the cap the other way when I was but let me say this too. I think the one thing that is the saving grace of this stage is there are 3 South African sides that need to play next week. So the Stormers, the Sharks, and the Bulls. So I think it's always tougher when there's one team, because that team, I think, gets more influenced. Just think the way it is, they get excited, but I think with 3 teams all having to play next week, I think that message is probably a little bit more easier for the players to understand. It's also different. I remember when I was coaching the Sharks, there was a training camp and they were actually on the field training, and that obviously puts you behind the 8 ball as well, because you give them off and then they train, and then that comes back to bite you because of the fact that they're not off their feet. Whereas I know that these alignment camps are, you know, they auditorium based and they video based, and I must be honest, I'm not too concerned that this alignment camp is happening now. It's not like it was in the old days, as I said, where they were on the field doing extras and training. I think it would be impossible for that to happen with 3 teams having to play next week. So I'm not really. I don't think it. I mean, there's enough feedback throughout the year, and there's enough feedback. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but every week they get feedback from the national coaches. So, you know, whether they got a video last week and a 1-pager, or whether they go into camp this week, it's probably exactly the same feedback they're going to get.